Welcome, dear listener. Settle in now, wherever you are. Make yourself comfortable. Close your eyes, if you haven't already, and take a soft, slow breath. This was sleep bread, dream bread, hush bread. Mata kneaded with her full body, arms slow and rhythmic, her palms folding the dough like a mother wraps a child in a blanket. The dough sighed under her hands, the air filled with a scent of yeast and gold. Tap, knead, fold. Tap, knee, fold. The only sounds were the soft breath of fire and the fluttering wings of a sleepy dove outside her shutter. As the dough rose, wrapped in a linen cloth that had belonged to a great-grandmother, Mata sat beside the fire. Sometimes she dozed. Sometimes she hummed a song that no one else remembered. The tune wound its way into the bread and into the dreams of those who ate it. And so, by the time the sun peeked over the trees, the first loaf would slide into the stone oven. The heat kissed it gently, and the scent, the golden scent, rose into the sky like a spell. Birds began to stir. Windows creaked open. Children yawned in their beds. The village didn't wake because of the sun. It woke because Mata's bread told it that it was time to rise. In and out. Allow your shoulders to drop, your hands to rest loosely. Feel the bed, the blanket, or the chair beneath you, holding you safely, gently. There's no place you need to be, no task you need to finish. Only this moment, only this warm and quiet space, and the gentle sound of a story. Let the world fall away behind you. Let your thoughts drift like steam from a warm loaf, soft and curling into nothingness. Because now, our story today begins at the foot of a green hill tucked between mossy stones and low walls. A village curls gently around the folds of Hollow Hill. You wouldn't find it on any modern map. And even in the days of horses and parchment, few travelers ever saw more than its treetops in passing. But those who did spoke of the softest bread. Diva tasted and a scent that drifted through the valley before the sun rose, carried on the breeze like a promise. That scent came from a single chimney. It belonged to a little cottage with a red clay roof just below the eastern slope of the hill. Its wooden shutters were blue faded now, and the garden behind the home hummed with sleepy bees. The path to the door was worn smooth by generations of footsteps, all leading to the same place, to the bakery of old Mata, the baker of Hollow Hill. Now Mata was not young, nor terribly old. Her back curved gently from years of kneading, and her hands were strong, dusty with flour that never quite washed away. She wore aprons patched with love, and a braid the color of milked tea. And every morning, before even the crows had stirred, before the hearths were lit, or the dew dried from the grass, Mata would wake. No alarm, no bell, only the whisper of dawn calling her name. She would rise from her woolen bedtoes, brushing the stone floor. The fire would crackle with a single breath. She said it was a trick of the hearth, but some villagers thought otherwise. After all, strange things were said to sleep beneath Hollow Hill. Now as the milk and saffron mixture cooled, Mata poured flour into a wooden bowl. She worked slowly. This was no ordinary bread. Once upon a time, there was a bakery on the side of a hill, and every morning before sunrise, its owner, a woman named Mata, took the first loaf of bread she baked up the hill to a great stone marker and left it there. The first loaf was always for the hill. Mata never sold it. She never sliced it, nor let it cool on the shelf. Her saffron bread, golden and soft, was the most sought after. Its scent was strange and ancient, like hay warmed in sunlight, or distant spices from caravans, long vanished. One villager claimed he dreamed in color after eating it. It wasn't frightening, it was comforting, as though the earth itself were watching over her. Once she tiptoed downstairs, past the darkened hearth and shelves of rising dough. She pressed her ear to the stones near the oven, and for just a moment, she heard a whisper. Not words, just a sound, like wind, like breath, like warmth made voice. When she told Mata the next morning, the old woman only smiled. You're beginning to hear it, she said. Most don't. Another swore. The loaf hummed to him as he drifted to sleep. Mata only smiled when they told her. And as the hush of Hollow Hill deepens with the coming night, let your thoughts knead gently into rest. Let your breath rise and fall like dough beneath linen, and let the whisper of the hill hold you, ever so softly, as dreams begin to stir like embers in the oven's heart. She never confirmed nor denied. She knew the truth. But the hill liked its mysteries. The baker's bell, a small bronze one hung above her door, began to chime as the first villagers arrived. He had no saffron on his shelves. That would have been far too dangerous. Nell asked questions. Why do we never use more than 3 strands? Why do you leave the first loaf on the hill? Why do the cats always sleep near the oven, even when it's cold? Mata would only hum in response, a soft, flowery sound like a lullaby without words. But she watched Nell closely, and at night when the wind was right, she taught her how to listen to the hum beneath the floorboards. Back then, saffron was guarded closely by guilds and kings, its transport taxed more heavily than silk. But Mata had seen something strange. As her grandmother traded for a pair of buttons, Mata noticed a merchant's cloak, stitched not with thread, but with the tiniest of red strands, no thicker than a hair, but glowing like coals. She said nothing, only watched. That night, she returned. She waited until the moon was high, until the fireflies blinked like soft stars in the head, and when the merchant passed by the bakery, his boots light on the path, she slipped behind him, following, until he stopped at the stone on Hollow Hill. He whispered a word, the same word she would whisper years later, and from within the folds of his cloak, he pulled saffron, not in a jar, not in a box, but sewn into the lining of linen shirts. Threads of gold, hidden in cloth, protected by silence and by the hill itself. The next day, he was gone. Only a faint scent remained, and a single strand of saffron on the bakery windowsill. There was Elder Brone, who always came for a slice of warm rye to ease his joints. There was little Linnet, barely taller than the counter, who counted coins one by one from a blue pouch. And there was Tom, the blacksmith's son, always covered in soot but smiling like the bread was made just for him. Mata never rushed. Each loaf was lifted with care, its crust tapped softly like the back of a sleepy baby. She tied every bundle in twine, then tucked a sprig of dried lavender into each one. It wasn't tradition, it was remembrance. For in the old days, bread was not only food, it was a blessing, a wish, a shield against bad dreams. She would take it, steaming and golden, wrapped in blue cloth, and walk barefoot up the eastern slope, where the dew still clung to the clover, and the stones were slick with morning hush. The path was narrow, bordered by wildflowers that only opened their petals at dawn. Some called them, others said they had no name, only a purpose, to catch the flower dust that drifted off her skirts. With slow, reverent steps, Mata reached the top of the hill where a great stone sat, round and gray, carved with a mark long, worn away by time and wind. She would place the loaf atop it gently, then whisper a single word. No one knew what that word was, not even Mata's apprentice, who sometimes tried to follow without being heard. But whatever it was, it made the wind change direction. It made the grass lean in, and it made the birds stop singing, just for a moment. Then, as though the hill had taken a long breath, the whirl would begin again. And in the bakery below, the shutters creaked open like sleepy eyes. Some loaves were dusted with rosemary, others curled like sleeping cats. Long ago, when Mata was still a girl, barely 10 winters old, a merchant from the east had arrived in the village, his cart creaking with bolts of cloth and little wooden boxers carved with dragons. Now, Mata had an apprentice, a girl named Nell, with copper-colored curls and a mind as curious as a squirrel's paws. Some nights, just before sleep claimed her, Nell would hear it, a gentle hum, deep and slow, like a great creature breathing beneath the roots of the hill. And so, dear listener, as the saffron settles once more in its jar, as the loaves cool on the window ledge, the days in Hollow Hill followed a rhythm, not just of time, but of texture, scent, and sound. Morning rose with a scent of saffron and dough. Afternoon with the hush of cooling loaves, evening with the scent of wood smoke and lavender, and night written not in ink, but in something that shimmered only in firelight. They were the markings of a grandmother's grandmother, passed down not by blood alone. The bakery was still, the village asleep. Mata had gone out to the hill, most likely, but hadn't said why. They used fire pits and flat stones, and they sang as they worked songs without words, tones carried in the wind. Those songs shaped the bread. Some loaves were for eating, others were buried in the ground. Offerings, prayers, gifts to the hill. Only placed a stone on the counter, amber-veined, just like the one Mata had shown Nell. Mata looked at it for a long time. Then she reached beneath the counter and gave him a loaf warm golden, the crust shaped like a crescent. He nodded, turned, and left. Nell had watched it all from behind the curtain. When she stepped forward, Mata said only this: "Some dreams don't speak, but they remember where to return." For Hollow Hill was once a place of gathering, where the people believed that dreams were alive, not just visions, in and out. Let the ancient oven glow inside your thoughts. Let the scent of saffron wrap around you like a blanket. Let the flower dust settle over your dreams like snow. You are safe here. You are held. You are remembered. But things that walked softly beneath the earth, waiting to be fed. The bread was not just food. It was a language between worlds. Nell sat by the cooling oven, her fingers tracing patterns in the flour dust on the table. She was thinking of the dream she had the night before. A dream of voices calling through a tunnel made of bread crust and candlelight. When Mata returned, her shawl was heavy with night air. She held something in her hands, wrapped in a cloth the color of midnight. Without a word, she unwrapped it. Inside, a single stone, smooth and oval, with veins of amber running through it. Nell leaned close. She thought she could see something moving inside, like a flicker, a pulse, a spark. "This," Mata whispered, "is why we knead slowly. Why we fold with care. Because sometimes we're not just baking, we're remembering." But by the hill, and the bond that the baker held with it, Mata had never tried to translate the symbols. There was no need. Smaller, older, its door shaped like a crescent moon. Few had ever seen it lit. But on special nights, when the moon matched the door, Mata would open it. Inside was warmth, unlike any other. Not heat, not fire, but a kind of glowing stillness, like the hush between breaths. She would place inside a single small loaf, no bigger than a hand. These loaves were not for villagers. They were for the dreams, the ones that wandered, that got lost, that needed a way home. She understood them in the way one understands the hush of snowfall or the weight of bread in the hand. And when she ran her fingers over the page, soft and slow, she would hear the hum beneath her feet rise, as if the hill itself remembered. Night came wrapped in silence, like a quilt stitched from lullabies, because it did more than fill the belly. It quieted the noise in the mind. Many swore that eating it before bed brought dreams of faraway places, of forgotten friends, of ancestors standing at the edge of memory. One boy, just 6 years old, told Mata he dreamed he was flying above the sea, his arms wings, his heart full of sunlight. He'd woken laughing, and an old widow once confessed as misty and soft that after eating the golden hush, she'd seen her husband again, just for a moment, standing in the orchard, smiling beneath the tree where they first kissed. Mother never claimed to make dreams. She simply listened to the flower and folded in the silence. People forgot how to find, and in that quiet hour, Mata would sit at her worn wooden table, its surface smoothed by decades of flour and fingertips. Beside her lay a little book bound in hide, corners frayed, pages soft with age. No title, no ink on the spine, only the faint smell of cloves and ash. This was not a recipe book. It was something older. The pages inside were filled not with measurements or times, but with symbols, loops, curls, star shapes, and winding lines. The villagers called her saffron bread, the golden hush, On a night when the moon was thin and silver, Nell stayed up past the turning of the coals. Long before Mata, long before the village even had a name, there were bakers in the hollow. They didn't use ovens. At the far corner of the bakery, behind a curtain of hanging dried herbs, there was another oven. One dawn, a man came to the bakery, tall, tired, his cloak patched at the elbows. His eyes were strange old and young at once. He said nothing, and as the wind shifts over Hollow Hill, and the stones beneath your mind grow warm and still, let the hush of bread rise and guide your breath. This is the story of Mata, the baker of Hollow Hill, and the unexplainable magic that unfolded within our bakery walls. In the village square, there stood an old sundial, its stone faded, its gnomon bent slightly eastward. No one used it to tell time anymore. They told time by the bakery. I swear, she whispered, I heard something, a hum, like it was singing inside. Mata looked up from her kneading. Her hands paused in the flour, her eyes lit with quiet knowing. Raindrops slid down the cloak like melted wax, and their boots left no prints in the mud. They said nothing, only nodded and held out a wooden token. Mata looked into the fire, her voice a thread in the wind, shaped like the full moon at its highest rise. She would place it on a silver tray, set it by the back door, and whisper to the stars. In the morning, the tray would be empty, but beside it, always, a handful of violet petals, still damp with midnight dew. No one asked about it, but everyone in the village woke rested that morning, as though something ancient had passed through, leaving soft footprints in their dreams. It's not a word you say with your mouth. It's one you say with your memory and with your rest. Nell blinked. I don't understand. You will, when you've forgotten everything else, and only the kneading is left, only the rhythm, the warmth, the hush. She paused. You'll feel the word inside the dough, like a lullaby you don't remember learning. And Nell didn't ask again. She only listened. Carved on it was the symbol from the sundial, the very one that had faded long ago. Mata didn't blink. She stepped aside, letting the figure in. Nell, watching from the stairwell, held her breath. The stranger didn't speak, but when they stepped to the oven, they placed one hand upon its stones and whispered, that word. The word Mata spoke each dawn atop the hill. The sound made the flour ripple in the air. It made the bread rise a little higher, and it made Nell's heart feel both heavy and light at once. The visitor turned to Mata, bowed gently, and left. They took no bread, but the hearth flamed higher in their wake, and for a moment, the hill itself seemed to sigh. Not all bread is quiet, she said. Some loaves carry echoes. Nell frowned, but smiled, too. Echoes of what? Mata leaned in. Flour dusted across her cheekbones like snow. Of places that never existed. Of people who've not yet lived. Of dreams that forgot they were dreams. Then she took the loaf gently and tapped it once on its golden crust. The hum faded, not gone, just sleeping. The first scent of dough in the air meant morning had begun. The sound of the third loaf being sliced meant midday, and when the golden hush bread stopped appearing in the window, the villagers knew night was on its way. Children would say, if you dream at the right moment, you could smell the saffron even in your sleep. And some nights, the whole village seemed to fall asleep at once, as if lulled by the same invisible lullaby, the lullaby of the hill. One evening, Nell, her daughter, held up a still warm loaf to her ear. Behind a panel in the bakery's wall, hidden behind a row of jars labeled thyme, clove, and nutmeg, was a narrow shelf. On it were 5 loaves, each perfectly preserved, crusts, uncracked, soft, but never stale, wrapped in black cloth, stitched with silver thread. These, Mata said one night, are never to be eaten. Nell reached out, almost instinctively, drawn to one that smelled faintly of violets. Mata gently pushed her hand away. They're sleepers. Each one holds a dream that's not ready to be told. Nell whispered. But why keep them? Mata answered slowly, her voice low and calm as bread cooling beside a window. Because dreams choose when they wake, and some need time to ripen. Years. maybe centuries. And as she closed the panel, the flour in the air seemed to swirl, like something unseen exhaled from the hill. At night, the hearth was never fully out. A low ember glow always remained, orange and tender, like the last note of a lullaby lingering on the tongue. One rainy morning, a figure cloaked in gray arrived at the bakery door. That evening, as they sat sipping milk, Nell finally asked, "What is the word? Matter. Why do you only say it at dawn?" Once a year, on the longest night, Mata would bake a special loaf, round, pale, dusted with pearl-colored flour. In the village of Hollow Hill, there was an old saying, "A baker's sleep is stirred with the dough," and Mata, more than anyone, understood what that meant. When the flour rose in the bins and the air held the soft scent of fermentation, when the earth beneath the bakery gently pulsed with that soundless lullaby, her dreams would become vivid, just listening. And as she pressed and folded, the room itself responded, humming softly as the dough shifted inside. Not loud, not frightening, but deep. And so she carried on the legacy of the 5 dreamers, the bakers who, across centuries, tended to the dreams of the hill. Each night, Mata would listen for the hill sung in her dreams. And when she heard it, she would find the hidden room below the bakery, where the dough of dreams waited, a shimmering, ever-changing substance that felt like fallen stars. And when the time comes, she will leave it on the windowsill for the next baker, the one who will carry the silence forward, the one who will listen. It wasn't dough in the traditional sense, no recipe, One day, she baked a loaf for the end of days, a black loaf that tasted of ash and moonlight. As the seasons shifted, so too did the bread in spring. Mata made loaves filled with wild garlic and dandelion petals, soft and green, like waking thoughts. Summer gave golden braid breads that smelled of sun-warmed honey and wood smoke, their crusts crackling with laughter. Autumn meant heavy, rich wheels of spiced brown bread, made with ground chestnuts and dusted in cinnamon. The kind of bread that sighed as it cooled beside the window. And winter, oh winter brought the hush bread, the saffron loaves, the golden silence. No matter the weather, no matter if snow covered the grass or rain soaked her shawl, the hill never went hungry. Bread meant to hold the heart still, to soothe the mind, to slow the world enough for dreams to enter gently. And always, with each new season's turn, Mata left one loaf on the hill. So now, dear listener, as the story lingers, like the scent of saffron and wool, and the quiet kneads gently into your thoughts, let yourself become soft, warm, weightless. Let the hush bread rise in the corners of your mind, cradling your spirit in gold and calm. If you've enjoyed this journey into the whimsical world of our heroine and her extraordinary bakery, I invite you to continue the adventure by supporting us. Your support will help us keep the oven stoked with enchanting tales and ensure that the bakery's bell rings merrily for many seasons to come. Together, we can ensure that our whimsical adventures continue to flourish, and that the laughter and joy they bring to our audience keep echoing through the valleys and over the hills. Your feedback is like a sprinkle on top, making our day and encouraging others to join in on the fun. Thank you for listening and for being a part of our story. Until next time, may your days be filled with a little magic and a lot of heart. So, dear listener, if you've found joy and enchantment in our stories and wish to play a part in their continuation, we invite you to visit our membership page and join our baking crew. Every contribution, big or small, is a valuable ingredient in our recipe for success. With your support, we can keep the oven fired up with fresh and imaginative content, ensuring that our shared journey remains an enriching experience for all. So, dear listener, if you're moved by the story and want to be part of our oven-gloving, bread-baking crew, we'd love to welcome you to our membership program. It's a wonderful way to show your support and receive delightful perks in return. Let your breath become the hill's breath. Slow, deep, remembering. Well, let me sprinkle a few details on top of your curiosity. As a member, you'll get to enjoy exclusive perks like early access to new episodes before they re-whisked away to the public, a monthly behind-the-scenes peek into our creative process with a special podcast, and a chance to influence our storytelling by voting on future episodes. Plus, as a token of our appreciation, all members receive a digital copy of our exquisite art book, brimming with captivating illustrations that bring our worlds to life. But that's not all. Our most ardent supporters will relish in the joy of being credited as a patron in our show notes. It's a delightful way to feel intertwined in the fabric of our production. And if you dream of bread that hums, or bells that ring themselves, or crumbs that glow like starlight, know that you are dreaming with the hill. And that sweet dreamer is the oldest story of all. We've reached the end of our tale today, but the magic doesn't have to stop here. Now, you might be wondering what treasures await you in our membership kitchen. As our humble bakers, your generosity enables us to keep the magic alive, to craft more enchanting tales for our community of listeners. And while you're joining our membership, why not leave us a review? One evening, when the wind had settled low like a sleeping cat across the fields, Matta asked Nell to open the dream book. The symbols shimmered quietly under candlelight loops, spirals, and markings like stars drawn by fingertip on velvet. But near the very end, there was a blank page. Only it wasn't blank. Not exactly. If you tilted the book a certain way, soft lines would appear. An outline of a loaf, shaped like a sleeping crescent moon, Matta whispered. This is the loaf without end. In a village nestled at the foot of a whispering hill lived a baker named Mata. Her bakery was a sanctuary filled with the scent of yeast and dreams. As she examined it, the bakery filled with the sound of tiny stars singing. One day, a young woman named Nell stumbled upon an old rolling pin hidden in the rafters. Then there was the flour that sang when needed, the bread that healed a broken heart, and the book with no words that taught the baker's apprentices the language of the hill. There was also the bread for the lost, the night bread ritual, and the jar of cold steam that breathed life into lifeless dough. Each ingredient, each story, carrying the essence of magic, mystery, and the comforting warmth of a life well lived. So come, dear listener, and lose yourself in the enchanting tales of Matta the Baker, where the boundaries between reality and fantasy blur, leaving you with a heart full of wonder and a longing for a simpler time. The last thing she heard Matta say before sleep claimed her, before her eyelids fluttered closed, was, "Don't forget the flower remembers." Even when we forget ourselves, the flower remembers. And that's how I discovered this story, buried in an old book of fairy tales. These stories about the bakery in Hollow Hill, they weren't written down anywhere. They were just in my head. It was filled with nothing visible. No liquid, no powder, no herb. And yet it was never truly empty. Matta called it the whisper jar. On quiet nights, if you pressed your ear closed, you could hear things, not voices. Exactly. But the echo of words said long ago in the bakery. Rising well today. Add a bit more time. Smells like mother's bread. Tiny memories. Soft. Fleeting. Once NL opened it, just a little, just enough to release a single breath. For the rest of that week, the loaves rose as if blessed, and every customer left the bakery smiling with something lighter behind their eyes. It was said that the jar didn't store whispers. It remembered them. And sometimes, that's all a dream needs to begin again. I didn't know how to write them down. Not until I learned the alphabet from a wise woman. Now I can share them with you. And maybe you'll share them, too. Let these tales become your own. Let the flower remember for you. I'll start with the first one. On a low shelf behind the spice rack, there sat a glass jar sealed with wax.